By lunchtime, I had decided that my new school was horrible and I was going to move back to Chicago tonight, whether mom wanted to or not. I'd call a taxi, I'd get a plane ticket. There was no way I would stay in this school. Even though it was only the first day of class, everyone already had their friend groups and none of them would let me in. It was like I was wearing a huge sign that said, New City Girl Kids giggled whenever I said my name or answered a question. I stopped answering questions after second period math class. A couple stopped and whispered to each other when I walked by in the halls. What had they heard about me? Others crashed into me as if they wanted to see how I'd react. I don't think I'd ever felt my face blush so much in my life. Running into the woods behind Grandma Jeannie's sounded like a much better time than this. The cafeteria was its own kind of forest. There I was at lunch, sitting at the end of a table all by myself. I didn't know what I'd been served, some sort of meatloaf covered in brown gunk, mashed potatoes that were clearly from a box, frostbitten peas, a brownie that was as hard as a rock and probably tasted like a rock too. I didn't eat meat. It made me wish I was back at my old school. At least there we could get the salad bar. I imagined if I asked the lunch staff here for a grass salad, they'd give me a plate of tears formed in my eyes as I pushed the food around on my plate. I was hungry and I was home, sick, and I hated it here. Back home, I'd be eating lunch with my best friends. They were doing it right now. We'd laugh about our talk, about which kids we thought were cute. Then, science teacher, or we'd plan to hang out later after school. I missed them, all of them. I couldn't even call or text because I couldn't get reception anywhere in this backward town. I hate this place. Can I sit here? A girl's voice above me asked. I didn't look up. It was probably someone just playing another joke, and I didn't want to be the punchline again. Excuse me? That made me look. I'd been bumped into a dozen times in the hall, and no one had said excuse me, especially not with that accent. She didn't sound like she was from around here, like me. For a moment, I thought maybe she was imaginary. She was definitely not from around here. She was in really nice jeans and a simple black top, and she had a ton of bracelets on her arms and perfectly manicured nails. She also wore a vintage locket on a gold chain around her neck. Her hair was long and curly, and when she smiled, she had huge dimples, and she was wearing makeup. But unlike anyone else here, she knew how to put it on. She looked familiar somehow, but maybe that was because she looked like someone I'd see in Chicago, not someone I'd see here. Hi, I asked. She laughed. Why was that a question? Because I don't know why you're talking to me. I looked around at the rest of the cafeteria. Everyone here pretends I don't exist, unless they're making fun of me. The girl looked around the lunchroom. Don't worry about them. They're simple. She said simple, like it was a curse word, and it made me suddenly grateful she didn't think that I was simple. She set down her lunchbox and held out her hand. I'm Vanessa. Josie, I said, taking her hand. She had a very firm shake and her fingers were gold. May I sit? I didn't realize she was still waiting for my permission. I nodded. Thank you, she replied. She sat down, but she didn't start eating. So, she said, looking at me intently, you're new here? Yeah. My sister and I moved in with my grandma yesterday. I'm from Chicago. Why would you leave Chicago for this? I almost answered with the truth. Mom lost her job and grandma was losing her memories. But then I remembered this Vanessa girl wasn't one of my old friends. I barely knew her. Mom wanted a change from the city, I said. I hope that made us sound sophisticated, not lost. Definitely a big change, Vanessa said. Well, don't worry, Josie, I'll take care of you. I didn't know how to respond to that, so instead I pushed around the meatloaf a bit more. My first job as your friend is to tell you not to eat that, Vanessa went on. I think it's the same loaf they served last year. I told her I was vegetarian, and she said she thought she was the only one in the whole town, or had been until I came along. I don't know why that made me feel better, but it did. At least I felt a little less alone. She started telling me about which teachers were good and which were bad, and which kids I needed to avoid, which was pretty much everyone. The way she described the place, it seemed like she was the only one here who might understand me, and looking around, I believed it. The kids who watched us stared openly. I felt like a zoo animal. I turned my attention back to Vanessa. Having her there made me feel a lot less singled out. I listened intently. I was so caught up in what she said, I didn't even notice that I'd eaten most of my peas and managed not to break my teeth on the brownie. By the time the lunch bell rang, I still hated it here, but I hated it a little bit less than before.
If you love this video, please click like, share, subscribe. Thanks for watching.